Porsha Williams walked into a divorce battle and walked out holding the keys to a multi-million-dollar mansion, more than $1.5 million in reimbursement, and a Rolls-Royce. Yeah, y'all come on in the room. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share your girl out. Yes, Porsha Williams, y'all, is getting richer and richer. And we're gonna get into it, okay? But the question remains, what nobody knows is how much could this really add to Porsha Williams' net worth, right? Porsha Williams may have just walked out of her divorce with something very different from what people really expected, right? More assets, more control, and potentially a much stronger financial position. Porsha Williams has a much richer portfolio than what people were saying she was going to get from this divorce. Now, because according to court documents and reported by TMZ, Porsha Williams has secured ownership of the Atlanta mansion she once shared with Simon Guobadia. That's her ex-husband. And that's not all, y'all. She is also set to receive $1,568,181 and in reimbursements from his share of the property equity. And I'm not through yet. She gets the title to a 2021 Rolls-Royce Ghost. Right? Let that sink in. A multi-million-dollar home. More than $1.5 million in reimbursement. And a Rolls Royce, y'all. So the obvious question is, did Porsha Williams just get a whole lot richer? It seems like it, right? Baby, it seems like she got a really good deal out of this divorce settlement. Now, before we start counting millions and before we start counting her packets, or her pockets rather, okay, there's something extremely important to understand. Now, receiving valuable assets does not automatically mean her net worth increases dollar for dollar by the value of those assets. And why, you may ask, right? Because assets can come to be with liabilities, right? A mansion can have a mortgage. She could have a mortgage on that mansion, right? It could have property taxes. God knows how much the property taxes could be on a multi-million-dollar mansion. Insurance. Does she have homeowners insurance that she has to pay? The maintenance. Let's talk about the maintenance of a home. Does she have a chef? Does she have a housekeeper? Does she have a landscaper, right? Okay, is there people that she has managing the home? Okay, that can get costly. Utilities, I can only imagine what that light bill is going for. Woo! I'm hollering when I open up mine, so I can only imagine what hers is. And potentially millions of dollars in debt attached to it. So we have to separate the drama from the actual financial math. But even with that warning, this settlement represents a significant financial victory for Porsha. It really does. Now, according to TMZ, Simon transferred his ownership interest in the Atlanta mansion to Porsha, okay, through a quit claim deed. And Porsha says she is entitled to $1,568,181.63 in reimbursement from his share of that property's equity. Now, that number alone is huge, right? We're talking about nearly $1.6 million. Okay, I'll take a little bit of that. And then there's the house. Okay, this isn't some ordinary property. Earlier reporting identified the mansion as a roughly $7 million estate. Right. Okay, not 250,000, not 500,000, not even 1 million, but a $7 million estate. Y'all heard me right. Imagine the financial picture for a moment. Porsha now has control of a property that has been publicly reported as being worth around $7 million. She also has a reimbursement claim of approximately $1.57 million. She gets the Rolls-Royce Ghost. That's a very different financial position from simply walking away from a divorce with personal belongings. But here's where this story gets really interesting. Okay. Porsha reportedly has full authority to refinance or sell the property in a commercially reasonable manner without Simon or an arbitrator having to be involved. And that changes everything because now the house is an asset she can control. Okay. She can do whatever she likes with the house, right? And if she's able to sell it, right, for that $7 million, right, all of that money goes back to her. She has full control over it. If she keeps it, she potentially continues building equity as the property changes its value and as the underlying debt is paid down. If she refinances it, she could potentially restructure the financing. And if she sells it, she could potentially turn the property's equity into liquid gold, into liquid money, right? Cold hard cash. Okay, the key word is equity because a $7 million house does not necessarily mean $7 million of wealth, right? If there's a large mortgage attached to the property, the actual net equity could be dramatically lower. And this is where viewers need to be careful when they see headlines claiming someone got a $7 million house. That's not necessarily the same thing as receiving $7 million in cash. But even after considering the liabilities, Porsha has gained something extremely valuable, which is control. Right. She has gained control. Really, really good. And control over a major asset can be an incredibly important when you're talking about long-term wealth. Think about it. Real estate can potentially appreciate, right? A celebrity's property can become part of their overall portfolio. And if Porsche eventually sells its mansion for more than the amount owed on it, then the remaining equity can become a major source of wealth. Okay, now, so we're talking about the mansion. Then there's the $1,568,181.63. Okay, that's not a future promise of appreciation. That's a specific reimbursement amount reported in the settlement, right? That's a specific amount, okay, in the settlement. And if paid as agreed, so if Simon doesn't waver, right, doesn't throw any curveballs her way, if paid as agreed, that's a substantial amount of money, right? That could immediately strengthen her financial position. She could potentially use that to invest. She can pay down debt. She could put the money in other properties. She can build businesses or simply increase her financial cushion. And let's not forget about that Rolls-Royce Ghost. Now, a luxury car isn't normally the kind of asset financial experts would point to as a major wealth building investment because vehicles do depreciate. But it still represents a valuable asset, okay, that Porsha gets to retain under the agreement. And this brings us to the final question. How much could Porsha Williams' net worth actually increase? And the honest answer, we don't know. We don't know yet, right? The numbers are still coming in, baby. This is just what has happened in this time frame, right? The numbers are still coming in, but we do know that she has gotten a lot richer, right, by this settlement. And anyone will try to give you an exact number for her net worth, right? But it's based solely on this settlement. You're only going to be making assumptions, right? Because if you're going to try to say how much her net worth is based on this divorce settlement that's coming in, we can assume because there's a lot of variables and liabilities involved in this. We don't even have enough public verification and information about all of Portia's assets, right? How much are her debts? How much are her taxes? What is her income? Okay, other investments and obligations to calculate her true net worth from the settlement alone. But we can say this: her balance sheet has potentially received a boost. We do see that, right? She has control over a multi-million dollar property. She has a reported 1.5 million of reimbursement coming from the settlement and a luxury vehicle. So we can report that, right? Okay. And she has the ability to decide whether the mansion stays in her portfolio or becomes a source of liquidity through a future sale or refinancing. That's a lot of power, baby. That is a lot of power. And then there's another fascinating part of the story. This divorce didn't happen after decades of marriage. No, she didn't put 30 years in with Simon Guobadia. Mm-mm. She didn't put 20 years of marriage in. Mm-mm. No, Porsha and Simon married in November of 2022. Mm-hmm. Porsha filed for divorce in February 2024. Mm-hmm. 15 months of marriage with a estimated $7 million mansion and a $1.5 million reimbursement and a Rolls-Royce Ghost being handed to her after only 15 months of marriage, y'all. Yeah, yeah, that's right. So we're talking about a relatively short marriage that ultimately produced an extremely complicated financial battle. And now Porsha appears to be walking away with a significant asset. Now the settlement terms were confirmed under oath, okay, during that August 5th hearing, with both sides telling the judge that their agreement resolved the remaining issues. Okay, so both sides agreed, y'all. So after all the fighting, all the headlines, and all the courtroom drama, the final question becomes, what does Porsha do with all that money and property now? Yeah, what will she do with it all? Because that could determine whether this is simply a big divorce settlement or the beginning of an even bigger wealth building chapter. If she keeps the property and it appreciates, that's potential wealth. Cha-ching! Right? If she sells and unlocks substantial equity, that's liquid gold. Cha-ching! If she invests the reimbursement wisely, that money could potentially grow over time. Cha-ching! And if her career continues producing income through television, entertainment, endorsement, and business opportunities, then this settlement could become one piece of a much larger financial picture. So no, we can't honestly say Porsha's net worth has suddenly jumped by $8 million or $10 million. That's not how net worth works. But we can say she appears to have secured a package of valuable assets and financial rights that could materially strengthen her balance sheet. And that is why this divorce settlement is so fascinating, y'all. Isn't it intriguing? Really is. Because Porsha Williams didn't just get a headline, she got options. Right? She got property. She got money. She got control. Yes, she did. Okay, and only after 15 months of marriage, not even decades, right? This is fascinating, really it is. And she got an opportunity to turn a painful chapter into a most definitely a powerful financial asset. So I want to hear from you all. Y'all drop down in those comments. Do you think Porsha Williams truly won this divorce financially? Do you think she won with what she got? Would you keep that multi-million dollar mansion or would you sell it? Okay? Would you take the equity from it and invest the money somewhere else? I guess it would all depends on how big your family is. Do you want to live in a multi-million dollar mansion like that? Or do you feel like you could be better served by selling it and getting the money from it, the equity? right? And the biggest question of it all, do you think this settlement could send Porsha Williams' net worth soaring? Okay, drop your comments below. We want to know, right? This story may be over in court, but financially, whoo, Porsha's next move could just be getting started. Yes, Porsha Williams, y'all. Porsha Williams hit the jackpot. Her divorce settlement, they have agreed both sides for her to get that multi-million-dollar mansion, for her to get that reimbursement, 1 million plus settlement, and for her to get that Rolls-Royce Ghost. Yeah, 15 months of marriage, right? And she has collected a lot of power and control. Yeah, I thought this was an interesting story and I wanted to bring this out to the forefront. But again, y'all, I want to hear y'all comments. Y'all drop down and let me know what y'all think about it. But my name is Tanya Marie here with Bold One for Life, where we want you to be unique, be different, but most importantly, just be you. Thank y'all so much for always coming on in the room and blessing your girl with your presence is greatly appreciated. Until next time, y'all. Ta ta for now.